Hank used to work at Gay's Sugarhouse, which was up off the Webster Pass, and traded time for syrup for the hotel. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of the stuff we still use came from Gay's. So that's the 1940s, 50s technology.
So when we're ready to tap, you go back up to where you've strung all your lines, you get them set to the height you want, pick your spot and you tap. So you've got to go around and do that with all the tubing, and then you also do all the buckets at the same time, which is tapping. And you know, we sort of do that as a chain of people. There's one person tapping, one person's tapping spiles in, one person's coming around with buckets, another person with covers, that kind of thing. Usually tapping around the last week of February. I mean, it depends a lot on the weather, obviously, but if you had to pick a general range, it would be the end of February through early April. I don't think we've ever been later than
16th
of April. And
usually you're done by the, you know, if you get, what can happen in some years is you can get all organized, ready to go, because it looks like it's going to happen. And you really don't want to miss the first run if you don't have to. Well, it's 275 buckets, and my guess is it's around 300 on the tubing.
And you try to, when you go to a tree from the previous year, you stay as far away from the previous tap hole as you can. So you're looking around to see where last year's hole was and how well it's healed, and how you can stay away from that so you're not damaging one section.
The diameter of the tree and the health of the crown is what determines how many spiles you can put into a tree. Mm-hmm. So if you went by the adage that the tree's ready to tap at 10 inches, that means you'd need to be at least 20, and that is stretching. It should be 20, 24 to put the, you know, a second spile in the tree. So it takes, you know, to get to one spile takes a long time. To get to two takes forever, and we don't have that many trees that are double tapped. So, and developed sugar orchards over time, and of course there were always the large maples up in front of the hotel, which provided good quality sap with high sugar, and it's just grown to what it is today. Not many updates since then. We've gone to some tubing. There's about 550 taps plus or minus, and that could be plus or minus 50.
But we always say when we're saving the little guys, it's not anything we're ever going to tap. It's going to be Tanner or Kyle or whoever happens to be doing it at that point, because it takes so long for them to get to that point. But they take a long time to grow up to a point where you can tap them.
Like how long?
So,
in best conditions, a rock maple won't reach tapping size for 40 years. In the best conditions, and the woods are not the best conditions. And the only other thing that dictates the amount of time is how much snow. If you're on snowshoes, it's quite a bit more work than it is if you're just walking through the bushes. So that adds, you know, snowshoes on and off, so you can drive the tractor. And it adds another dimension. Then you can have, and almost invariably you will have, a 2 to 3 week freeze up.
right.
When nothing happens, and then it all comes hard in the next 10 days after that lets go. We probably collect between 5,000 and 6,000 gallons of sap in a given year. You would really rather have it so that it came on a regular basis over it's about a 6-week period. And for years it was, I know when Hank was doing all the sugaring for Gay's, they typically would leave town meeting, which would be the second Tuesday in March, and they would go start tapping, and that was when your season started. But now, you know, we seem to have had some different warming, climate change. The winters have been different, and I think it's important to look at that in our lifetime. We're looking at a small window as opposed to, you know, hundreds of years of what could have happened. But it's a little earlier. There's no question about that. So initially, you're getting the sweetest, purest sap, and it has higher sugar content, lower water content. You'd be on that low end of the average right now. You'd be saying maybe you're in the 30 to 1 range. On each spile, which is each tap, will produce 1 quart of syrup in a given season. Well, I like to boil early, so I'll go in between 3 and 4 in the morning and get it started. If we have 600 gallons of sap, then that's That's a 14-hour, 16-hour day, easy. So the way we look at it, and I know our little operation's a 2.5 by 8 evaporator, produces 1 gallon of syrup per hour. So if you think of the amount of sap, 40 to 1, that's how much sap you can boil off. So in a 10-hour day, you're going to boil 400 gallons of sap. In a 20-hour day, you're going to boil 800 gallons. And again, we don't have that many. We haven't had an overnighter in a long time.
So the firewood that we use is really leftover tailings and tops from our logging operation. Primarily or almost all softwood. So we'll cut down pine trees and spruce trees and such, and the tops that we aren't using for logs we'll split up as firewood, and that's what we burn down there. It's a useful way to use something that really doesn't have any other use for us.
I think if you look back, 100 years ago it was pretty much an agrarian society. People worked and lived on the farm, and they produced what they needed to get through for a year, and what they could sell for money they did and make a living. Most farms had some small sugar operation because that's how they made their sweetener for the year. And the size system that we had would have been very typical of what came off of, out of a farm. It fits into our business. The syrup that we provide has an intrinsic and aesthetic value to the guest. In most places you go to, you pay an upcharge for fresh, home, real maple syrup on the table, as opposed to caramel-colored corn syrup with a maple sweetener in it, an extract or whatever. So it certainly has a value, and it's a good time of year for us to do it. We've got the environment for it. We probably only boil 10 to 12 days in reality, because you may only get 10 runs or so, and it's a good fit for what we do here. Our crop is 120 gallons. So in a poor year, we've made as low as 40.
Yeah.
We've made as high, I think the most we've had was around 200, 204. So, but the average is 120. Syrup's always been provided on the dining room tables to the guest as part of the package. And some of the balance of that gets used as a retail crop. We sell it off the bellhop's desk.
90 gallons broken down into half gallons, half pints, quarts, pints that we sell, like we were talking about at the bellhop desk. And then we get as much as we can for after the fact, so that we can use that in the hotel. And if we have a bumper crop and we have extra, then we can freeze it and use it another year. Try and get 35 gallons for the hotel to get us through the summer. I mean, we sell out of everything we make for retail every year, pretty much, and a lot of that is through the hotel. But we also have a lot of people who purposely come by here to buy the syrup that we've made, and we make sure that people are aware that we've made it here. It's great for us. It's great for our business, and people compliment us on it and let us know that they like it, and so I think it is very noticed by our guests.
So creating your grade of your syrup, your color in grade A syrup. So lighter, sweeter at the beginning, darker, more earthy flavor as the season goes on. So towards the end of the season, we were boiling 46 to 1. So that average comes around 40. We had good sugar this year, but it varies year to year. It's only a couple of days to clean up everything. We're right in the midst of that now. The buckets get washed and the covers with a mild soap solution, a little bit of bleach, and rinsed, dried, put away. And all of the tubing, we take it down every year, which is unusual. And we run a mild bleach solution through it, rinse behind it, and coil them up, put them in the barn. And then the sugar house needs to be scrubbed with hot water and bleach.
So if Scotty and I go out, for example, and it's a good run, it's 3.5 hours for us to collect it. you know, between the two of us for what we have for taps. And then, like Ken said, he can be in the sugar house for 14, 16 hours, depending on how much there is to boil. So there's a lot of time put into it and a lot of effort put into it. You know, I definitely heard the comment, why is syrup so expensive? And now that I've been producing it, I understand why it's so expensive.
People have been to a sugar house when they were younger, and now they want their kids to see a sugar house. So they like to see the children see the process, and as you indicated, it's a basic process. Just reducing sugar from sugar water and getting rid of the water.